The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known universe. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, a massive sphere of crystal and metal that could hold millions of beings at once. Inside, 847 different species sent their representatives to discuss the matters of the galaxy. Some were tall and covered in scales. Others were small and had dozens of legs. A few existed only as clouds of glowing gas. They had nothing in common except one thing. They all believed they understood how the universe worked. Today, they would learn how wrong they were. Ambassador Michael Torres walked into the chamber with slow and steady steps. He was a man of 50 years, with gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes that showed no fear. Behind him walked his small team of human diplomats. They looked very small compared to the massive aliens that filled the seats above them. Some of those aliens were 20 feet tall, others had claws that could cut through steel. The humans had soft skin and no natural weapons at all. The aliens looked down at the humans with expressions of amusement and pity. Another weak species had found its way to the stars. Another civilization that would need protection from the dangers of the galaxy. The humans would probably beg for help and promise to serve the stronger races in exchange for safety. It was always the same story. High Counselor Vethron sat in the highest seat of the chamber. He was an ancient being with dark blue skin and 4 arms. His species had ruled the council for 3,000 years, and he had seen hundreds of new civilizations come before him. Most of them were forgettable. He expected these humans to be the same. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," Vethran said. His voice echoed through the massive chamber. "You are the 848th species to join our community. We hope you will find peace and prosperity among us." Michael Torres bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, High Counselor. Humanity is honored to be here." "Before we proceed," Vethran continued, "we must ask the traditional questions. These questions help us understand your civilization and your place in our community." He paused and looked down at the small human. "How do your people resolve conflicts with hostile civilizations?" This was the question that every new species had to answer. Most species talked about their military strength. Others talked about their defensive capabilities. A few admitted they had no real way to defend themselves and asked for protection. Michael Torres smiled. It was a calm and patient smile, like a teacher about to explain something to a student who did not understand. "We do not battle them," he said. The chamber erupted in noise. Chittering laughter came from the insectoid species on the left side. Deep, rumbling sounds of amusement came from the giant rock beings on the right. Even the gas cloud species flickered in what seemed like mockery. Admiral Krixtal of the Velthari Empire leaned forward in his seat. He was a warrior from a species that had conquered dozens of worlds. His body was covered in natural armor, and his eyes glowed red with predatory intelligence. "Then you surrender?" he asked. "You simply give up when someone attacks you?" Michael shook his head slowly. "No, Admiral, we do not surrender." "Then what do you do?" Krixtal demanded. "If you do not fight and you do not surrender, what option remains?" Michael looked up at the thousands of alien faces staring down at him. His expression did not change. His voice remained calm and steady. "We remove them," he said, "entirely." The laughter stopped. The chamber fell into complete silence. Some of the alien diplomats looked at each other in confusion. Others leaned forward, trying to understand what the human meant. Vethran raised one of his 4 hands. "Explain yourself, Ambassador. What do you mean by remove?" "I mean exactly what I said, High Counselor. When a civilization attacks humanity, we do not send fleets to fight them. We do not invade their worlds. We do not negotiate or make peace treaties." Michael paused. "We remove them from existence. Completely. Permanently." More silence. Then Krixtal laughed again, but this time there was uncertainty in his voice. "Impossible," he said. "You are a young species. You have only been traveling among the stars for 200 of your years. You do not have the power to destroy civilizations." "We do not destroy them," Michael corrected. "We remove them. There is a difference." One of the council record keepers, a small creature with large eyes and excellent memory, raised its hand. "Ambassador Torres, our records show some unusual information about your species. According to our data, 3 civilizations declared war on your people in the past 150 years. All 3 of those civilizations no longer exist." Michael nodded. "That is correct. There are no records of any battles," the record keeper continued. "No reports of destroyed fleets or invaded planets. These civilizations simply vanished. Our historians believe this is a record-keeping error." "It is not an error," Michael said quietly. The chamber remained silent. Vethran stared at the human ambassador with new interest. There was something in the human's eyes that made the ancient counselor feel uncomfortable. It was not anger or pride. It was something worse. It was certainty. "You are dismissed for today, Ambassador Torres," Vethran said finally. "We will continue these discussions tomorrow." Michael bowed again and turned to leave. As he walked out of the chamber, he could feel thousands of eyes watching him. Most of those eyes were still filled with doubt and amusement, but a few, the smartest ones, were beginning to feel something else. They were beginning to feel afraid. 6 months passed after humanity joined the Galactic Council. In that time, the other species mostly forgot about the strange words spoken by the human ambassador. There were more important matters to discuss. Trade agreements needed to be made. Border disputes needed to be solved. The galaxy was a busy place, and one small species from a distant arm of the Milky Way was not worth much attention. But the Kethvari had been paying attention. The Kethvari were warriors. They had been warriors for 4,000 years. Their bodies were built for combat, with thick scales that could stop bullets and claws that could tear through metal. They stood 8 feet tall and feared nothing in the universe. They had conquered 63 worlds and enslaved billions of beings from dozens of species. No one had ever defeated them in battle. No one had ever come close. When the Kethvari heard about the humans, they saw an opportunity. Here was a young species with no military reputation. Their planet was rich with resources. Their location would make an excellent staging ground for further conquests. And best of all, the humans had admitted in front of the entire council that they did not fight. Supreme Admiral Keth Rock, the greatest warrior in Kethvari history, assembled his fleet. 12,000 warships, 800 million soldiers. It was the largest military force ever gathered by his species. It was enough to crush any civilization in the galaxy. The ultimatum was sent to Earth on a cold morning in January. Admiral Rebecca Hayes received the message in the Earth Command Center in Chicago. She was a woman of 45 years with short black hair and sharp green eyes. She had served in the Space Defense Force for 20 years, but she had never actually commanded a battle. No one in humanity's military had. There had been no need. She read the message carefully. The Kethvari demanded complete surrender. All human territory would become Kethvari property. All humans would become Kethvari slaves. Any resistance would result in the complete destruction of Earth and every human colony. Rebecca sighed and turned to her second-in-command, Commander David Parker. He was a young man with brown skin and tired eyes. He had read the message, too. "They did not read our files," Rebecca said. David shook his head. "They never do." Rebecca turned back to her screen and opened a secure channel to Terran Strategic Command. The face of General Thomas Blake appeared. He was an old man with white hair and a face full of scars from an accident long ago. His eyes were hard and cold. "General," Rebecca said, "we have received an ultimatum from the Kethvari Dominion. They are demanding our surrender. Their fleet will arrive in our system in 72 hours. Thomas Blake nodded slowly. He did not look surprised or worried. He looked like a man who had heard this story before. "How large is the fleet?" he asked. 12,000 warships, 800 million soldiers." "I see." The general was quiet for a moment. "And what is your recommendation, Admiral?" Rebecca did not hesitate. "Removal authorization, sir. Full protocol." "Agreed. You have authorization for Protocol Omega. Timeline?" 72 hours. We will need the full network." "Understood. Begin preparations immediately." The general paused. "And, Admiral? Make sure the Council observers see everything. It is time they understood." The channel closed. Rebecca turned to David. "Contact Dr. Cole," she said. "Tell her to wake up the network." David nodded and began typing commands into his console. Outside the window, the city of Chicago continued its normal routine. People went to work, children went to school, couples walked in the parks. No one was panicking. No one was building shelters or preparing weapons, because there was no need. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council received word of the Kethvari ultimatum. Most of the council members shook their heads sadly. The humans had been interesting, but they were clearly doomed. The Kethvari had never lost a war. The humans had no real military. It would be a slaughter. High Counselor Vethron made a decision. He would send an observer to witness humanity's destruction. It would be a good lesson for other young species who thought they could survive in the galaxy without proper military strength. Counselor Thrix was chosen for the mission. He was a Velthani scientist with excellent recording equipment and a curious mind. He traveled to the edge of the Sol system and positioned his ship where he could see everything. He expected to document a massacre. He expected to record the death of a civilization. He had no idea what he was about to witness. The Kethvari fleet entered the outer edges of the Sol system like a swarm of metal locusts. 12,000 ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. Admiral Kethrak stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the small blue planet in the distance. "Pathetic," he growled. "They have not even launched their defense fleet." "They have no defense fleet, Admiral," one of his officers reported. "Our scans show no military vessels anywhere in the system." Kethrak laughed. "Then this will be even easier than I thought. Send the final warning. Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender." The message was sent. Earth received it. Earth did not respond. On the surface of the planet, life continued as normal. Rebecca Hayes sat in her command center, drinking coffee and watching the Kethvari fleet advance on her screens. David Parker was reviewing reports from the global network. Neither of them showed any sign of worry. In a facility beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Amanda Cole placed her hand on a control panel and smiled. "Systems ready," she said quietly. "Just give the word." The word would come, and when it did, the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Amanda Cole had worked on Project Terminus for 30 years. She was now 65 years old, with gray hair and gentle blue eyes that hid a brilliant and sometimes frightening mind. She had been a young physicist when the project first started. Now she was its director. She knew every detail of the system. She understood exactly what it could do, and sometimes, late at night, that understanding kept her awake. The facility beneath the Swiss Alps was one of 10,000 identical facilities spread across Earth and its colonies. Each facility contained the same equipment. Each facility was connected to the same network. Together, they formed the most powerful weapon ever created by any species in the history of the universe. It was not a bomb. It was not a laser. It was not anything that other species would recognize as a weapon. It was something far worse. Amanda placed her hand on the control panel and felt the familiar hum of energy beneath her fingers. Around her, hundreds of technicians worked at their stations, checking systems and running final calculations. No one spoke. No one needed to. They had practiced this moment many times. "Network status?" Amanda asked. "All 10,000 nodes are active and synchronized," a technician reported. "Power levels are optimal. Targeting systems are calibrated." "And the genetic signature?" "Locked and confirmed. We have complete mapping of Kethvari DNA from their transmission signals. The system will affect only Kethvari biology. No other species will be touched." Amanda nodded. This was the key to Project Terminus. The weapon did not destroy planets or ships. It did not cause explosions or radiation. Instead, it reached across space and time itself to find every individual of a specific genetic type. And then it simply removed them, not killed. Removed. There was a difference that only physicists truly understood. Above the Earth, the Kethvari fleet continued its approach. Admiral Kethrak was growing impatient. The humans had not responded to his ultimatum. They had not launched any ships. They had not even tried to contact the Galactic Council for help. "Perhaps they are too afraid to respond," one of his officers suggested. "Perhaps they are simply fools," Kethrak replied. "It does not matter. In 48 hours we will be in orbit. Then we will burn their cities until they beg for mercy." At the edge of the system, Counselor Thrix watched and recorded everything. His ship's sensors showed him the massive Kethvari fleet moving toward Earth like a cloud of death. They also showed him Earth itself, quiet and peaceful, with no sign of military preparation. Thrix found this strange. He had studied hundreds of conflicts between species. Every civilization, when faced with invasion, did something. They launched ships. They activated shields. They sent desperate messages to allies. They did anything they could to survive. The humans did nothing. For 3 days, Thrix watched the Kethvari fleet advance. For 3 days, Earth remained silent. The council members who received his reports were confused. Some thought the humans had simply given up. Others thought they were planning some kind of surprise attack. A few wondered if the humans were even aware that an invasion was happening. None of them guessed the truth. On the final day, Admiral Rebecca Hayes stood in her command center and looked at the tactical display. The Kethvari fleet was now only a few million miles from Earth. In a few hours, they would be close enough to begin their attack. "Dr. Cole," Rebecca said into her communicator, "status report." "All systems are ready, Admiral. We have been ready for 69 hours, just waiting for your order." Rebecca looked at David Parker. He nodded. "Send the message," she said. David typed a command into his console. Across the galaxy, a single transmission was sent simultaneously to every Kethvari individual. It reached their home world. It reached their colonies. It reached their fleets. It reached every single Kethvari alive, no matter where they were hiding. The message was simple. 3 words that would echo through galactic history forever. "You were warned." Admiral Kethrak received the message on his bridge. He read it and laughed. "Warned?" he said. "These fools think they can warn us? We are the Kethvari. We have conquered 63 worlds. We have killed billions. What can these soft creatures possibly do to us?" He turned to give the order to begin the attack. He never finished the sentence. In the facility beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Amanda Cole pressed the final button on her control panel. Across the planet and beyond, 10,000 facilities activated simultaneously. Energy pulsed through networks that existed partly in normal space and partly in dimensions that most species did not know existed. The targeting system found every Kethvari genetic signature in the universe. The removal system activated. It took 1/100th of a second. When it was done, Amanda Cole closed her eyes and leaned against her console. Her hands were shaking slightly. They always did after a removal. "It is done," she said quietly. "Log it." A technician's voice responded, mechanical and empty. HFY Dominion. Status: removed. Total population affected: 47 billion. Time elapsed: 0.01 seconds. Amanda opened her eyes and looked at the screens showing the HFY fleet. The ships still floated in space, their engines still running, their weapons still charged, but there was no one left inside them to give orders. There was no one left anywhere. Counselor Thrix had been a scientist for 200 years. He had studied the mysteries of black holes. He had documented the birth of stars. He had witnessed events that most beings could not imagine. He thought he understood the universe. In 1/100th of a second, he learned that he understood nothing. His recording equipment captured everything. The HFY fleet was advancing toward Earth. 12,000 ships filled with hundreds of millions of warriors. They were the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They were unstoppable. And then they were empty. Thrix watched his sensors in disbelief. One moment, the life signs showed millions of HFY on every ship. The next moment, the life signs showed 0. Not dying, not decreasing slowly, simply gone. As if someone had pressed a button and erased them from existence. He immediately scanned the ships more carefully. The results made no sense. The ships were undamaged. The power systems were still running, the weapons were still charged, the food in the dining areas was still warm. The chairs on the bridges still held the shape of the bodies that had been sitting in them seconds ago. But there were no bodies. There were no HFY. There was nothing left except empty ships drifting through space. Thrix sent an emergency message to the Galactic Council. Then he turned his sensors toward the HFY homeworld, which was thousands of light years away. His equipment was not strong enough to see details at that distance, but he could detect general life signs. The HFY homeworld had held 30 billion individuals that morning. Now it held 0. On the planet itself, the scene was impossible. Cities stood intact. Buildings were undamaged. Vehicles sat in streets or floated in the air, their automatic systems keeping them stable. Food sat on tables in homes and restaurants. Machines continued their work in factories. Everything was exactly as it had been moments before. But there were no HFY anywhere. A pot of soup boiled over in a kitchen, with no one to turn off the heat. A vehicle crashed into a wall because its driver had vanished while moving. A child's toy fell to the ground in a park, dropped by hands that no longer existed. Across 63 worlds, the same scenes repeated. The HFY civilization was perfectly preserved. Only the HFY themselves were gone. Admiral Rebecca Hayes watched the empty fleet drift past Earth's moon. She felt tired. She always felt tired after a removal. Not because of the work involved, but because of what it meant. "Removal complete," she said into her communicator. "All HFY signatures have been eliminated." "Confirmed," came the response from David Parker. "Logging the event now." Rebecca walked to the window of her command center and looked out at the Chicago skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Children were playing in a park below. A couple was walking hand in hand along the river. Life continued as normal. No one on Earth had even noticed what had happened. There had been no battles, no explosions, no death or destruction that humans could see. The threat had simply been removed, like deleting a file from a computer. Rebecca wondered sometimes if that made it better or worse. In the Swiss Alps, Dr. Amanda Cole shut down the Terminus network and sat alone in her office. She had a bottle of whiskey in her desk. She did not drink often, but she always drank after a removal. It helped her sleep. She had helped design this weapon. She understood the science behind it. The system did not technically kill the HFY. It did not cause them pain or suffering. It simply altered reality at a quantum level so that they had never existed in the first place. Their matter and energy were redistributed across the universe. Their consciousness simply stopped. It was clean. It was instant. It was merciful in a way. But 47 billion beings had existed that morning, and now they did not. Amanda had made that happen with the press of a button. No matter how she explained it to herself, that fact remained. She poured another drink. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council received Thrix's report. The recording was played in an emergency session. 846 species watched in horror as the evidence unfolded. The Kethvari were gone. Not defeated, not conquered, gone. Completely and totally erased from the universe in less than a heartbeat. High Counselor Vethron sat in silence as the recording ended. His four hands gripped the arms of his chair so tightly that the metal began to bend. "How is this possible?" someone asked. "What kind of weapon can do this?" "Not a weapon," another voice said. "This is something else. Something beyond weapon." "Where did the humans get this technology?" "They did not get it from anywhere. They made it themselves." The chamber erupted in terrified conversation. Species that had been enemies for centuries suddenly found common ground in their fear. The humans had been among them for only 6 months. The humans had seemed weak and harmless. The humans had smiled and talked about peace. And the humans could erase entire civilizations from existence with the push of a button. In a quiet corner of the chamber, Ambassador Michael Torres watched the chaos with calm eyes. He had not wanted this to happen. He had hoped the Kethvari would listen to the warnings. They never did. No one ever did. But now, at least, the rest of the galaxy would understand. Humanity did not make threats. Humanity made promises. And humanity always kept its promises. 1 year had passed since the Kethvari vanished. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Wars that had lasted centuries suddenly ended. Border disputes that had killed millions were quietly resolved. Species that had been planning conquests canceled their invasions. No one officially explained why. No one needed to. Ambassador Michael Torres returned to the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council for the annual assembly. He walked through the massive doors and stopped in surprise. His seat had been moved. Before, humanity's representatives had sat in the outer rings of the chamber among the other new and weak species. Now a single chair waited for him at the very center of the room, in the position reserved for the most powerful species in the galaxy. Michael walked to his new seat and sat down. He could feel thousands of eyes watching him. A year ago, those eyes had been filled with amusement and pity. Now they were filled with something very different. Fear, respect, and above all, caution. The session proceeded normally. Trade agreements were discussed. Scientific discoveries were shared. Cultural exchanges were proposed. When votes were taken on important matters, Michael noticed something interesting. Whatever position he supported, the entire council supported as well, unanimously, every single time. No one disagreed with the humans anymore. No one dared. After the session ended, High Counselor Vethron approached Michael. The ancient alien looked older than he had a year ago. His dark blue skin had faded slightly, and his 4 arms moved more slowly. "Ambassador Torres," Vethron said quietly, "may I speak with you privately?" Michael nodded. "Of course, Counselor." They walked to a small room off the main chamber. Vethron closed the door and stood in silence for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been haunting him for a year. "How many species have you removed?" Michael considered the question. He saw no reason to lie. 7, he said. 3 before we joined the council. The Kethvari. And 3 others who attacked us during our early years of space travel. Vethron closed his eyes. 7 civilizations. Hundreds of billions of lives. Gone. They chose their fate, Counselor. We gave them warnings. We gave them chances. They ignored us. We do not make the first move. We never have. But when someone moves against us, we make sure they never move again. Why do you not simply rule the galaxy? Vethran asked. You have the power. You could remove us all and take everything for yourselves. Michael shook his head. We do not want to rule anyone. We never did. We just want to live in peace. We want to explore the stars and learn new things and build a good life for our children. That is all we have ever wanted. Then why create such a terrible weapon? Michael was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. And his voice carried the weight of humanity's painful history. Because we learned, he said. Our first contact with alien life did not go well. A species called the Vrex found our colony's ship and attacked it without warning. We had no weapons. We had no defenses. 30,000 humans died in minutes. We sent messages begging for peace. The Vrex ignored us. They saw us as weak. They saw us as prey. He paused. We spent 10 years developing Project Terminus. When we activated it, the Vrex ceased to exist. All of them. Everywhere. In one moment. And the others? The same pattern. They saw a young species without apparent military strength. They thought we would be easy targets. They were wrong. Vethran stared at the human with new understanding. You are not warriors. No, Michael agreed. We hate war. We hate violence. We watched our own species fight each other for thousands of years and we were sick of it. When we finally reached the stars, we swore we would never fight conventional wars again. We would never send our children to die in battles. We would never watch our cities burn. So instead, you remove entire civilizations. Only those who attack first. Only those who refuse peace. Only those who leave us no other choice. Michael met Vethran's eyes. We are not monsters, Counselor. We are survivors. And we learned long ago that the only way to guarantee survival is to make sure that anyone who threatens us can never threaten anyone again. Vethran nodded slowly. He finally understood. The humans were not cruel. They were not evil. They were simply practical in a way that no other species had ever been. They had looked at the universe and made a simple decision. No more wars, no more battles, no more killing of their own people. Anyone who wanted violence would receive something much worse than violence. They would receive nothing at all. The session resumed. Michael returned to his seat at the center of the chamber. The other species watched him carefully, speaking in polite tones and agreeing with his suggestions. The age of galactic warfare was ending, not through diplomacy or understanding, but through pure, absolute fear. Years passed, centuries passed. Humanity became the silent guardian of galactic peace. Wars between other species stopped, not because the humans intervened, but because no one wanted to risk drawing their attention. Conflicts were resolved through negotiation. Disputes were settled through compromise. Dr. Amanda Cole died at the age of 93. Before her death, she gave one final interview to a galactic news network. Do I regret what I helped create? She said, repeating the reporter's question. Every single day. But we gave them choices? We always gave them choices. We never removed anyone who did not attack us first. That is what separates us from the monsters we remove. The reporter asked one final question. Is there anything that could make humanity use the weapon against a species that has not attacked first? Amanda smiled sadly. It was the smile of an old woman who had seen too much and understood too well. No, she said. That is our line. We will never cross it, because if we did, we would become exactly what we have spent centuries removing from the universe. And humanity would rather die than become that. She closed her eyes. We are not perfect. We are not heroes. We are just humans. And we made a promise to ourselves long ago. Never again. We would never again be victims. We would never again be prey. And we would never again become the very thing we fear. The interview ended. Across the galaxy, trillions of beings watched it in thoughtful silence. And in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Michael Torres sat in his seat at the center of the room and wondered if humanity had made the right choice. He hoped so. He truly hoped so. But he knew that only time would tell.